there's a bit of a tsunami behind waiting. There's a couple tsunamis behind this thing once, a couple months out, right? Let's get past the economic one. But, one of the tsunamis, I think, is we're going to have a mental health issue, right? There's a lot of people that drinking is going up. There's a lot of people, when you isolate people and you remove them from touch, you remove them from connection, you remove them from the sun, you remove them from, healthy interactions, there's an impact there, and if you keep people in for a long time, there can be an impact. And when people, if you, Man's Search for Meaning. You ever read that book?
Hey, what's up? This is Sean Dustin from the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. Thanks for stopping by to check out the show. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Good to have you with us today. I want to drop a plug for a new true crime documentary series called The Con. I was able to screen this, and I watched the entire series in one shot. It's going to be excellent. I feel like this thing's going to catch fire just like Making a Murderer, but only better because it's about things that we all know are going on, but we don't know how they're happening or how they're being played out. And this really breaks it down. So, you can watch the first episode actually free on the Con Facebook page. Just go into your Facebook search bar and type in The Con, and it should pop up. Yeah, and then the other one that you can go to is the Real Progressives Facebook page. They're hosting it on there as well. And yeah, check it out, man. It's once you watch that first episode, and you can catch all of the information that's out about it currently in the notes, in the show notes. At least watch that first episode, and that will, I guarantee you, be enough for you to want to continue watching. And once you're finished, your mind will be blown, and you'll be like, "Oh my God. How can we cancel corruption?" And that's what we need to do. Once you wake up from, what's been going on, we need to band together and cancel corruption. Hashtag cancel corruption. Start using that in any post that you want to call out corruption. And if enough of people are banding together for one simple cause, which is we can all get behind stopping corruption in the political and corporate sectors, that's where it has to start. Anyways, I'm talking to Jeffery Davis in this episode. Jeffery is a transformational coach and also an actor from LA. And we have a pretty good conversation, talking about a couple of different things. And yeah, I think you're going to enjoy what I have for you. So let's get to the show. This is a Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and I'm your host, Sean Dustin. Today we are talking to Jeffery Davis from LA. And Jeffery stopped by on a post that I posted looking for people that have bottoms and life struggles in their life, and they want to share with the audience. And that's where we're at. So, Jeffery, how are you?
I'm doing really well. Sean. I really appreciate you having me on. I love what you're doing with your podcast. I think it's super important for people to see the possibilities, the opportunities, and what exists in life. And I'm excited to interact with your listeners and have some fun here.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for coming on. It's always good to listen to other people, their stories, their struggles, their bottoms in their life, and most of the time I come out the other side of this as the host, but I also learn a lot about the people that I'm talking to, conversing with, and, about struggles that I may be having that I didn't even know I was having, or how to get through something that I may be struggling with by listening to somebody else's problems or stories and how they got through it.
Awesome.
So how did you get,
go ahead.
How did you get to, how did you get to be here today?
It's been an interesting journey. I'll take the long road on that one. So I have been on a transformational journey for starting kind of, I would say, actively in the last 10 years. And it's been an unraveling of who I was and discovering who I actually am. And it interestingly enough started for me around two things. Three. One was there was a breakdown in how far I thought I could go. And it became clearer and clearer to me that the way that I was doing things was no longer working, which was I just had things figured out. I was living in my brain. And, so the level of connection, the level of intuition, the level of peace in my body and my experience was not high. But the level of accomplishment in the direction that I steered that anxiety towards and that energy towards was great. So you can, if you live in your head, society can reward you really well financially. It's a completely different experience being in your heart, in your body, in your energetic space, interacting with people. It requires a vulnerability. It requires a connection to who you are. It requires a connection to being able to bring that to the front for other people to connect with, and for you to be able to relate to other people and also connect to source with them. So so really the work happened. That was the first thing, was kind of a breakdown on my end. The second thing was I had at the time I was dating somebody who had done a lot of personal development work, and they suggested and helped me during a stressful time to connect with somebody who kind of opened that window for me and made me start, and I started to see what the benefits were. And then third was when I first moved to LA, I was acting, and I had moved down here to act and produce. So when I first got down here, I was fortunate enough to have taken a class with Larry Moss, who is brilliant. He's just an amazing teacher. And so in the course of that, Larry works with you as a human. And so as a human, he pulls all the stuff, all the programming and all the ways of being and all the wounds and everything else, and then gives you, he gives you kind of a guide as to how to do the work so you can show up authentically, so you can have a full range of access to who you are, which is what you need as a human and also as an actor and as a human. So one of those things was doing personal development work, therapy, and things like that. So I started doing that, and my acting got better. Not great, but a little bit better. But my life got enormously better. And I found that it was really transformative. And there was one point when I really started this, where I got to a place of rewriting and reconnecting with what my values were, and then shifting them to a recreation of who I wanted to be and what they would be aligned with, what those new values would be aligned with. And it was interesting because at the time, and I saw this in a meditation visualization as I was doing it, I saw almost like a Family Feud, my list of values, and freedom was on the top. Audience says freedom, bing,
ding,
number
ding,
one
ding,
answer,
ding.
right? Yeah. And so the Davis family won. My family won.
Yeah.
And so in this moment, as I was sitting here and visualizing and tapping into, values and what that had created as a life and the life that I wanted to create, what I saw on the other side, what I did was I literally in my mind saw where connection was. And it was down around number 3, number 4. And I could see in my mind moving that panel, ding, I didn't get as many points, up to the top. And the most fascinating thing about that shift in values and starting to put my energy towards deep connection, what that required of me in a way to show up. And that required a shift in completely how I interacted with people. And the second thing was the first experience that I had after I put connection at the top was I felt lonely. Because all of a sudden, I saw the gap between where I was and where I wanted to be and what the possibility of that value at the top was. And it was really the first time where I'd felt it at that level. So that was kind of the beginning. And then I've been coaching. I'm a transformational coach. So I work with executives to basically do the same thing that I did, which was get out of your head, back into your heart, and get to a place of fulfillment, peace, abundance, joy, and connection. And so I help people do that through different somatic techniques and movement, breath work. And it's really an amazing process. It's an amazing process. So, and it's beautiful to be part of. And in that process, during the same time period that you have, as we're sitting here inside with a little bit extra time, I really want to see how I can provide more information to people and more of my story that I think could inspire people. And so I was looking at podcasts, and I love what you're doing here.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. You're the third person that I've talked to. Well, the second person I've talked to today, that is doing something similar to that. But the third person overall in my circle of influence and people, past guests, that are in this space. And a lot of them right now are offering a lot of their services that they would normally be charging for free. You know what I mean? For the Zoom, community now that everybody's kind of a part of. Wish I would have dropped some bucks in that stock.
Yeah, right.
Well, Feinstein did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's an amazing way. I mean, dude, I don't know why maybe people were doing that before, but I mean, that's a huge way to be able to boost your following. You know what I mean? Because people are getting a chance to see what you're offering, and will be able to, you're bringing them through a hard time. You're giving them connection, you know what I mean, to the outside. Right. And then you'll be able to turn that free client probably easier into a paying client on the offset of this.
Right.
And if you don't, who cares? You're still helping somebody.
The world a better place.
Yeah.
The world. I'm super clear that I'm here to make the world a better place and leave a legacy of love. And what that looks like. And when you bring love into the world, you also bring peace, joy, connection, right? So it all comes with that. And so yeah, you're right. There's a lot of people that are currently on there, but I also think that there's a bit of a tsunami behind waiting. There's a couple tsunamis behind this thing once, a couple months out, right? Let's get past the economic one. But, one of the tsunamis, I think, is we're going to have a mental health issue, right? There's a lot of people that drinking is going up. There's a lot of people, when you isolate people and you remove them from touch, you remove them from connection, you remove them from the sun, you remove them from, healthy interactions. There's an impact there, and if you keep people in for a long time, there can be an impact. And when people, if you, Man's Search for Meaning. You ever read that book?
No.
The essence of the book was looking at people in the Holocaust and who did better and who didn't. And the people who had something to live for, had a why, had a connection to something beyond themselves, were people who actually made it much further. And that's what keeps you alive. That's what your juice is. That's, the search for meaning are, what does life mean? We decide what it means, right? And we decide if it's hopeless, and our minds can literally create our physical reality, right? Our brain doesn't know if we're visualizing something, if it actually happened, if we do a good job of visualizing, if it actually happened, or if we actually went to this place, or if we just visualized it. It doesn't know the difference, right? We had the experience. So we may physically not have the same experience. I went for a hike not too long ago and I tweaked my knee, right? I probably wouldn't do that if I was visualizing it, but the rest of my experience energetically would still know that I had that experience.
Yeah, there was a study done on athletes and which ones did better when they visualized their event before it was going to happen. You know what I mean? Let's say let's use a track event for an example. So they visualized themselves doing all of this, and the ones that did had better outcomes than the ones that didn't.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the Olympic trials, I want to say 4 or 5. Maybe it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, something like that. A friend of mine who I hadn't spoken to in quite a while and had lost her number got in touch with me, and so we got together for a bike ride. And I was like, "Well, we haven't talked in a long time. I'm not sure. I get that there's things going on in the universe, right? Where things happen for us." Not saying, that everything's, unicorns and rainbows, but I'm just saying that, it also depends on how you look at the world. Are things happening to you or for you? And so I tend to believe that there's gifts in everything, right? I think that's a much more profitable opportunity to experience this life in its fullness, to be actually in acceptance of what happens. So my friend comes and we're going for this bike ride, and I'm thinking to myself, I guess the reason why she called is going to show up. And so we're talking a little bit. She's going for the Olympic trials in running. And down, I think that the trials were in Atlanta at the time. And so I said to her, "How's your visualization going?" Because I know she trains. Obviously she's going, she's amazing. She's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, your visualization, you're doing that, right?" She's like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about? What is that?" So I was like, "You're going for the Olympics and you're not visual." Okay, so that's why you're here. So I told her how to do it. And after the trial, she's like, "I'm going to tell you a story." So she literally, I have to tell you, it was the best story ever because I didn't know it was. She said, as I was running, here's the thing. She said I go to the line. I haven't been able to warm up because my leg is hurt. So she's not warmed up for the Olympic trials, right? And she's like, I just got to do what I got to do. So boom, they're off. And as she's running, she's like, I literally experienced the same experience that I had visualized. Even the place looked similar, and I hadn't been in that exact place. She's like, and we're neck and neck. And she literally, it was a photo finish. She didn't get it. But from ground zero with a leg that didn't hurt, with no warm up, she blew it out. And she was like, I literally I had already visualized this place that I had never been. I had already seen the race that I hadn't done. And I finished as quick. It blew me away how fast I was. So, yeah. I hear
Yeah,
you.
it's crazy how the mind works. The mind is crazy, and they still don't even they. That's the one part of the body that they have no idea how it works.
Right.
It's in my opinion, it's just this big antenna, and it's
Funny you say that.
yeah, our mind is a big ass antenna. What we put out usually will come back. If you are putting negative stuff out, negative stuff's going to come back. If you put positive stuff out there, positive stuff will come back. If you're not, so you have to be in tune with it though, because there's a lot of opportunities that, come around and we're not paying attention. We're not open. We're not open to receiving what's coming back at us. And we miss a lot of opportunities.
Right.
When we're not in that space, but when you do know and do understand about universe, energy, all of the stuff that goes along with it. I think that at one point we were, telepathic, but since we, back in the days, but ever since we've gotten this, I don't know, the layer of, EMF, electromagnetic frequencies flying all around, all over us, 4G, 5G, microwaves, millimeter waves, whatever it is, we have a bunch of stuff that is going on around us at all times. I mean, everything in this space that I'm at is creating a electromagnetic, wave of some sort,
Right.
or frequency of some sort. And I talked to somebody today that's involved in, EMF and the bracelets, the frequency bracelets, and trying to all that. I don't know if it sounds interesting. But I mean, there's something there.
Yeah.
There's something there. There's a reason why, when you get further away from, cities, and when I go to the mountains, that, when I think something, so here's a funny story. Me and my dad, we go to the mountains, and we have to 4-wheel drive up to it. And it's at the top of a mountain, and there's a small lake there that drains into another lake that drains into another lake. The road that we took going up, I had forgotten to get new tires, and mine were kind of bald, right, on my truck. And so I was kind of worried about, like, oh my God, how are we going to I hope we can get back down. That was a really rough ride. There's another way that we can go. I've never been there, and I don't really want to try it, because what if we get stuck? You know what I mean? I don't want to venture off into a path that I've never been on before, especially with having tires that aren't, don't have a lot of tread on them, trying to 4-wheel drive with them. And, so we'd been thinking about this for at least 3 days. There's no cell service. There's no nothing. I mean, it's beautiful out there. And towards like the day before, I mean, we had talked about it every day. I'm like, all right, so do you want to go down there and check it out? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I just, I'm really not, I'm uneasy with that. I don't want to get stuck. I'd rather take my chances on the path that I know is where it's going to lead me to than going off the beaten path on one I don't. And so the day before we were supposed to leave, and nobody has come near our place at all. I mean, there's been like maybe 5 or 6 people that have come through this area, because not a lot of people can get there. And so this truck comes down and goes right into like the area right next to us. And he's got some kayaks, and he goes, "Hey, do you mind if I, stop here and, we go on the lake, and use our kayaks?" I'm like, no, go ahead. I mean, I don't own the place. You know what I mean? You seem cool. And so, yeah. And then when he came back, I'm like, why don't I ask him if he knows, and I did. And he's like, "Oh, actually, yeah, I just came up that way. And this is where you need to go." Gave me the directions, and then gave me some weed too, because he's a grower.
Yeah.
So the universe will answer you, especially when you're in a situation where you're not around. And I've heard tons of stories like that. There's a guy I listen to named Freeman Fly, and he's a podcaster and a conspiracy theorist. He's probably one of the ones that's been doing it for the longest. And he talks about that all the time, cause he just he's like a gypsy in a way, just kind of let's go on the road and, whatever happens, happens. And he's like, and it ceases to amaze me that I have nothing, but yet no matter what, I'm always taken care of. What needs to happen or who I need to meet is always placed in front of me, because I know, and I know the game,
Right. Well, I mean, you said some interesting stuff. I mean, it's interesting to me on many levels, because I have this thing that I say that we are just meat antennas, sending and receiving information. And so, and I truly believe that's always happening. However, and everybody is an antenna. However, if your antenna is muddy, if you're not tuned into any other station other than the negative station, so you're only sending and receiving negativity, right? Or you're only so it depends on your level of consciousness. I don't know if you've ever read any David Hawkins books, Power versus Force, or where he talks about the levels of consciousness, and how at certain levels, like the lowest being shame, it's almost like a depression. And then once you get up to a level, towards the like bottom third, once you get to anger, it's an energy, it's an active energy. So you can actually start to use that to move up. Anger and courage can start to take you up into joy and love and action and things that'll get you out of this. But once you're in in the shame cycle, it's just like it's quicksand. And so yeah, it's just really, it's where you're tuned into the universe is always listening. And the second thing is if you're listening, right? So you were trusting the universe, and your awareness was open.
Yeah.
So those are things that need to happen. Your antenna needs to be clean, not polluted with, all kinds of bad foods and bad stuff. And so you can't feel and you can't receive the information that's coming and going, because it's almost like you've got rust on the connections.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's not a clean connection, but when you have a clean connection, I don't know about you, if you've ever done a juice cleanse, but when I do a juice cleanse, like the first day I'm hungry, the second day I'm a little tired, the third day I'm energetic, fourth day I'm like energetic and joyful, and all the information just starts flooding in. All the information it's just so much. I'm like, wow, am I really not attuned to all this stuff around me, all these people, all this energy so much? And it's easy to be with it when I'm not on a juice cleanse, and I feel a lot of that. Sometimes it's too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. It's, I think there's a lot of things that are being hidden about what we actually are,
Yeah.
Because it doesn't serve.
Well, we're powerful. We are extremely powerful beings, having a human experience.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
And so, people have been lied to about the power that they have, and what powers they have, and how to navigate this in a powerful way, this human experience.
I think one of here's a perfect example is like, I don't really want to drive this to politics, but I mean, just think about where we're at, politically, this bailout. I mean, call it whatever you want, but I mean, it's socialism for the rich. It is what it is,
Right.
Right. They're the ones that are going to benefit the most from this. And as the fallout financially from where we're at starts to take shape, and some of these assets that people are going to be losing, homes, cars, all of these depressed assets, all that bailout money that these banks and everybody else are going to have now, will be able to afford to buy it all up while nobody else can. No one else is going to be able to afford that. And so it's just another further accommodation or consolidation of wealth amongst the elite.
I think that's a generous statement. Consolidation. It's more of a theft, but yeah.
I'm trying to be politically correct. And if you want to, you want to You want to know how I really feel? Go listen to 28 and 29.
Okay.
and I basically, I borrowed three segments from, other podcasts that I listened to, and I put them together, and just kind of like, one from the Rogan, one from, Jimmy Dore, and one from, I think, the Conspiracy Farm. And they're all talking about the same thing. One of them saying we need to revolt. The other one saying that we need a general strike. And the other one is basically, breaking down what the Fed is, and that it's not a part of our government. It's a privately owned entity in itself, which a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. There's a book about it, how it was formed on Jekyll Island.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were talking about that too. It was, Pat Miletich, was explaining it. You know who Pat Miletich is, right?
No.
The UFC fighter, one of them from early days. Yeah. So he got together with another guy named, Jeffrey Wilson, and they started a podcast called Conspiracy Farm. And it's not, basically they're not starting conspiracies. They're just stirring up the pots of ones that are already out there. And, and there's a lot of truth to, conspiracies. They start with a kernel of truth.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is that, there's a binary way of thinking that is predominant. It's like, it's either true or not true, and you've got to be in one camp. You're either with us or you're not with us. And I definitely get that there can be some stuff, if you're in gratitude, you're not going to have another experience that's, not in gratitude, right? So there's ways that you can be a little bit more like that. But when you're having a thought of, is this particular, theory true or not? There can be elements of that theory that's true, and then elements of this other theory are true. There can be a lot of things happening all at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I agree with you. It is a theft. It's and I think if we end up anywhere near where we were in 2008, 2009, 2010, where 5 million people lost their homes, families, not just people, families. So, a lot more people were displaced because of that. If we get anywhere near that and people start to see that, because I think everyone's waking up, they're like going, this is bullshit. Oh yeah. You know what I mean? This is the gap is so far away from where it should be. The inequality in wealth and how it's being, spun and driven. We might be in trouble as a society.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And as far as like, okay, now what do we need to do to take back our power? Because we have the power to turn this government over. We do.
Totally.
And we're in a perfect position to be able to do that because I've said this a couple of times, but as somebody who's in the union and knows about what strikes are, and I've never been in one, but I know the one thing that keeps people from striking is the fact that income. I have a family. I can't, as much as I believe you and I support this movement, I got a family to support, man. I got to take care of my kids. I got, I don't have the luxury of being able to go out there and picket and stand in solidarity with you. That's a huge thing, but right now everybody's in that position.
Yeah. So I would agree with you. I think that there has never been more power placed in the lap of the people than right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Literally there is not that excuse. And on a physical level and on multiple levels, everybody has gone inside. And so much when you go inside, when you're meditating, everybody has to go inside. And so much like when you go inside and meditating, sometimes you've got an active mind, you can't sit still, So some people are just, distractions, whether it's booze or TV or whatever it is, they're like in distraction mode. And then some people are like dropping in and really coming away with a different experience of what this world is. It's almost like the entire world is on a bit of a vipassana, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've all kind of stepped back. Everything is the noise is much lower. it's much, I don't know about you, but I feel like it's much easier to be in touch with myself. I'm learning things about myself, just simple things that I have space to see and feel in my body. It's amazing. So, and when you walk around, like, I don't know, I mean, it feels like I can feel the electricity and the energy a little lower. Now, on the flip side is, that you can definitely I can feel the fear in the world too. But there's less noise. There's less background noise. So it is easier, there's less, at least I'm not watching any news or any TV. There's less. Yeah. I mean, that's the first thing. If you want to be healthy, turn the news off.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the first thing. Yeah.
I think that was one of the biggest mistakes that ever happened was when they allowed that act was placed in there or law, or I don't even know what you want to call it, but that was placed in that we're allowed to use propaganda against your own population.
What was that, like 8 years ago or something? Obama signed that.
Yeah, which is what CNN or whatever these, is it MSNBC or which ones are the ones that are connected to the parties? There's two of them, right? Two networks.
I think isn't Fox more conservative and MSN more liberal? Isn't that the thing? I don't really watch the news.
Yeah, I don't either, but I know that like there's one for the right and then there's one for the left, and they were created for propagandizing the left and the right.
Well, Fox News is literally is called an entertainment channel, not a news channel. It's the title is Fox News, just like the Federal Reserve has federal in it, but it's a private organization.
Yeah,
Fox News has news in it, but it's an entertainment company.
Did you know that I heard that there was two constitutions for the United States? There's the Constitution, the United States Constitution, and then there's the Constitution for the United States.
Oh yeah, we're going deep on this one, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that all ties into that whole sovereignty. You know what I mean? Sovereign citizen. The what is that?
The maritime rights.
Yeah, maritime rights and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the different court system and the birth certificates and everything else. Yeah, it's a whole.
Yeah, like
it'll fry your brain.
Yeah, it's really confusing. And if you, as somebody who's been to prison, I would hear stuff like that where, the guys would be talking, oh yeah, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to say, when they call my name, I'm going to not go past that. Once you pass a certain point, you are no longer, you have to be able to say stuff to not get caught up by the judge, because they're all trained to ask you questions that will trip you up, and whatever it is you're trying to do. I'm maritime law is what I fall under, and I don't know. I'm not good to explain it. But yeah, that was always going around, and guys would try to do that, and they get caught up, they get tripped up by the judge, and answer the question wrong, and they'd be like, well, too bad for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, what they were in for.
Yeah. But that's neither here nor there. I don't know enough about it to even be actually talking about it, other than the fact that somebody sent me something about it. Anyways.
Yeah. I mean, in these times, talking about these times that we're in for a moment, let's just call them, they're obviously very unique historically, but it's a stressful period for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's, because there's so many questions. People are living, it really has risen our awareness that we are in the unknown. Mm-hmm. We always live in it, but now we're aware of it.
Yeah.
We've always been in this system, plugged into the system of media, and the whole cultural system and how it moves us through. But now you can really see it. right?
Yeah.
Once you take a step back from things, you can really see what you've been in and what it's structured like. And, it'll be interesting to see what, because it's not like they're going to say, okay, on Tuesday, we're all going to go out and everything's exactly the same. I mean, so it is, again, an opportunity for people, and both, people who have different agendas. Some of them may be healthy for everybody, and some may not be healthy for everybody, to take this as an opportunity. And so, the people who want something powerful need to first believe that that's possible. Whether you think that this is, on the up and up or whatever it is, you still have to and maybe you have a clear path and you're like, okay, I know what's happening here. You still need to hold the intention and the energy and the frequency as an antenna for, a higher vibration of connection, for love and something bigger being possible, versus being in a negativity of, oh, this is going to be, this is awful, this is going to happen. And, that's not going to actually give you hope, back to Man's Search for Meaning. That's not actually going to give you a good why. That's going to give you a kind of a wall to run into. And that's not going to feel good. And and for some people, it would be catastrophic. So, you can impact your health. People die of broken hearts. I mean, like your thought process impacts your health. It impacts, again, what you call in. And it, again, as we have all slowed down, and this potent opening the entire world has slowed down, right? So there's a potent opening, like a portal that's opened energetically, where there's, I don't know if you feel it, but I feel, it's a very different energy in the air, now than 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'm not just saying because people are talking about, the virus or anything like that. It just feels different, distinctly different.
Yeah. It feels, it's a movie like,
Yes.
So here's a funny thing. So you see my finger, right? I smashed it. And, it was probably about like 2 weeks ago. I went to grab something, from like it was before we really got heavy into this, out masks and all this other stuff. And I was at a Port of Subs grabbing lunch, to go. And I stopped and I looked around and I'm like, God damn, this is so weird. It feels like a movie. And I let the door to my truck go, and I was like, just like in such a daze because of how strange it felt. And I, bam, slammed the door right on my finger. Oh, that was horrible. That hurt so bad.
Wow.
Like it was literally throbbing for 24 hours and then it just dissipated. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad it was over, because I couldn't sleep. The pain was so bad. I couldn't sleep. And, yeah, but that's what I was thinking about. I was like, God, I feel like I'm in a movie right now it's just weird.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have that feeling a little bit too, and it also, when you said that, it also made me think of something. Did you ever see the movie Contagion?
I do remember. I remember the movie. I don't necessarily remember how it goes though. I do remember seeing it though.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it. I didn't think it was great, to be honest with you. But the reason I'm bringing it up is that I was cast in it, up in a scene opposite Elliot Gould. So it feels like a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's very real.
Yeah. The only other thing that I can liken it to is, so remember 9/11 when that happened? And that day when the planes hit the towers. Yes. So I was living in Arizona then, and I was working for a cable contractor, and we were installing cable. And so I was in the public. I mean, I woke up in the morning. I was doing doing my routine, getting ready for work. News was on, and bam, the first one hit, right? And I was watching it at home. And so I'm like, shit, I got to go to work, and they're talking about it there. And then I start going. I remember I went to a restaurant at lunchtime, and it was just the eeriest feeling in the air.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just like, it almost like like even now, like I would walk through something, or I'd think something, and I'd just get chills. You know what I mean? I would just be like, God, the energy just feels so weird. You know what I mean? I didn't know how to think. I didn't know how to process it.
Well, you're saying something super important, which is like when people are stressed. And I think that, especially that day, I remember, there was I woke up that day. I didn't have a TV. My father called me, and I had a friend in from New York. He's like, hey, you need to, this happened. And I was like, we're gathered around a radio listening to it.
Mm-hmm,
right.
mm-hmm.
It was like that. And it just ran all. And so then I went to a friend's house and watched it on TV, and it just ran all day. And I was like, wow, it's kind of traumatizing to watch over and over, or hear about it, or have it, be in discussion. I mean, it's traumatizing.
Yeah.
And when you're in that level of, a negative experience, being traumatized, or, your anxiety is high, that would cause, you don't know how to process things. You're not ready to process things. You actually lose cognitive abilities to process things. You become, if you were to take an IQ test before and after during that time period, you lose brain points. So, yeah, so what you say is completely factual and physiological and emotional. Our emotions not only impact our physicality, but also our cognitive abilities. We start pumping out cortisol and adrenaline, and, all of the blood rushes out of our brain and into our bodies so that we can get out of there. Our digestion slows down, all of our internal organs start to get less blood.
Yeah. I almost felt like it was, how insects, leave hormones or chemical, things that let other, like bees do this. They leave a chemical, something that lets another bee that comes know that this flower's already been hit, right? Or I've already been here. So I felt like it was kind of like that. Like everybody's energy level was at such a point that it was going, it was almost like pheromones, or almost like how a baby knows, like when a mother has the baby close to him, the connection in the skin to skin and the hormones and the chemical thing makes her start lactating.
Right.
I almost felt like that there was like something like that in the air with everybody's emotions at the same level that was like putting off some sort of a field.
Well, animals can smell fear.
Mm-hmm.
And we can.
Yeah,
we just may not know we're smelling it, but we can feel it.
Yeah.
We might not even realize that we're feeling it. And sometimes we don't even realize it's not our fear, it's somebody else's that we're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our space, in our world.
Yeah.
So, because if you're not holding a strong space, then somebody can impact you. Right. So if you're not grounded in whatever vibration, whatever feeling, whatever emotion that you're holding. So for instance, like if you're done your meditation, you're doing your self-care, maybe you're stepping into breath work and, a practice of gratitude, and you're in touch with your physicality. So, okay, I'm starting to feel something. And so you can breathe it through and move it through. Then if you're not doing that, then you're just you're like a blank slate for somebody to paint on with their energy.
It's interesting to say that. I had an interview with, I think it was 30. It was 30. And I was talking to three gentlemen that were in prison. Literally, they were in prison, and they have a contraband cell phone, and they started.
I saw that one.
Yeah, they started a podcast with this cell phone, right?
I thought that was brilliant.
Me too. I'm like, Jesus, what a great idea.
Right.
And so I was interviewing him, and one of we were sharing stories because I've been behind the wall myself. And one of the guys was saying, yeah, sometimes you have to be really careful when you're talking to people in there, because you can end up listening to their stories and taking on their, experiences. And so let's say if they had a bad experience with a Latino person, and so you're listening to their stories, and you can not even knowing it, take on that story yourself. And now you feel that way about that particular race, even though you've never had that experience with them. You're taking their energy and their experience, and now you've made it your own. And so now you hate that race as well.
Right.
He said, you got to be really careful that, when you're talking to people, that you don't do that, because then it's hard to break away from it.
Right. Well, there is a saying that your life reflects the five people you're around the most, right?
Yeah.
Because your life is the sum of the five people that you're closest to and you spend the most time with, right? And that is basically saying the environment that you're in creates the experience that you have. And the environment that you're in also comes internally, externally, and then that'll magnetize or allow other people into your field, right? If you're adamant, I want to create this particular life, like you're solid, you painted on your canvas, you're like, this is what I want, this is my visualization, then you're not going to let people in that are going to like not fit that. I mean, you may have compassion for them, they may cross your path, but they're not going to be in your inner circle. And that's critical, right? And just like that, even, again, back to news, like or whatever you ingest, food for thought, right? It literally is that, whether it's media, whether it's people, whatever the environment is, it has an impact on you. Especially if you're not grounded. There's an entire business that's based on creating an impact inside you that shifts your beliefs. It's called advertising. I spent a lot of time in it. There's a research. I used to be in media buying for major agencies back in New York. And so there's research that shows that on media, TV, that when you show an ad 3 or more times, it's called an effective frequency of 3+, right? So when you show an ad 3 or more times, you start to impact somebody's belief systems, their attitudes. By repetition and emotionally connecting to them, you start to influence them. You start to sell them. They start to be they start to merge their values. I mean, they approach you from a place of values. Like, what are your values? I mean, I don't know if you've noticed in the past 6-7 years, there's a lot more advertising that'll speak. I mean, like some of the language of spirituality, we're all one, or, love, or, there's marketing that's taking things out of culture and selling them back to us. It's like, oh yeah, okay, so you guys are interested in love and ascension, so let's take that and put it on top of this thing that you want and then get you to buy it.
Yeah It's
and we are animals, and the key difference between our animal experience and our human experience, that gap right there, is awareness. Because we become animals when we're unconscious. We become humans and able to make choices when we are conscious. And even when you are trying to be conscious and you're focused on that, there's only a certain amount of time that you can be conscious. It's almost like you wave in and out of it.
Yeah.
And it's a practice. It's a practice.
A lot of good stuff, man.
Yeah.
That's why I like these conversations, man. It's just, I don't like sticking to a format. I just kind of like letting it go where it goes, because you get good kernels of information.
Yeah. I'll give you a couple, you and everybody listening to a couple things that, if in this anxiety or depression, just simple things that people can use to kind of lift themselves up. So your body, your physicality, you can shift who you are, how you're being, and your experience of life, either externally in or internally external, right? So there's research that shows if you're holding your hands up like I scored a goal for about 2 minutes, then you can start to shift and raise your attitude, your emotion, your current experience. And even if you'll notice when people are depressed or when they're anxious, they're like looking around a little bit, and they're breathing high. So you drop your breath down, right? When they're depressed, they slump down a little bit. They have less energy. Their eyes also drop down. So simply by not your head, but by raising your eyes up higher and taking a deeper breath, you can start to actually elevate out of some of the depression and some of that experience and some of that anxiety, and give yourself maybe a moment above the water where you can get some air, and then you can start to move in the direction you want to go.
Good. Yeah, good information. I have, I don't suffer from depression, but I mean, we all have down times in our life, where we, may not be 100% who we are, and that's not the right way to say it, but I mean, we all have down times.
Right.
And it's just, how you manage your way through those times, that bring you on. But, I usually have a routine that I go through, when I'm in that space. And it usually starts with just cleaning my space. You know what I mean? My personal space. What is it that you need to do? All right. Well, let's get up. Let's take a shower. Right. Let's start moving. All right. Let's just start moving around, and
movement.
Yeah.
Is huge.
Yeah. Just start moving around. All right. What's the next thing that needs to get done? And then these small goals, small victories bring back that confidence and self-esteem. And then from that, okay, well, let's go outside. Let's go outside of the house. Now that the house is clean, let's move to your car. Let's clean that up. Right. And then it's just a progression. And then it just, okay, but now we're back on track.
Right.
It's,
I believe that, the laws of physics are true, right? And so an object in motion tends to stay in motion. One at rest tends to stay at rest. So if you want something done, you give it to a busy person, not somebody who's just sitting on the couch all the time watching TV. Because people who are getting things done know how to get things done. They're like, I don't have time for this. I'll delegate it. I'll make it work. I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And the people who don't have a deadline, aren't working with a structure, and are feeling depressed, it's like just it takes 90% just to get off the starting line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's a good point to end it on.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, I do. Thanks for coming on and adding value to my show, or to the show. It's everybody's
I appreciate
show.
you having me on. Yeah, this is great. It's great seeing you.
Yeah, you too, man. Why don't you go ahead and plug any of your stuff, your social media, if you have a podcast, anything that you're doing or you want to be out there. Go ahead and plug that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. My website is Jeffery Davis Coach, spelled Jeffery, Davis, Davis, coach.com. And I help people, as I was just saying before, work through to get to a place of peace, joy, abundance, health. And it's a transformation. Most of my clients, in fact, all of my clients will tell me at the end, I'm not the same person that I sat down when I first started working with you. It's the work that I do is less, okay, I want to accomplish, 5% more revenue or whatever it is. It's like we go in and move all of the stuff out of the way, and it's an upgrade to a place where you are being somebody who's doing something completely different at a different level. Because where you were was joy, was not in joy. So this is what I love to do, and I love to talk to people about it. I'm open to having a conversation with anybody that wants to talk.
Cool. And then there'll definitely be another place for you to put that in the show notes. So if you have like a bio or anything else that you want to email me, that you want me to place in there with your links and a picture so I can, build a promo clip and, one of those headliner things, and I'll shoot it over to you so you can share that on all your platforms.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, me too, man. And thank you again. And, have a good weekend, brother.
Thank you. You too. I appreciate the good work you're doing. It's really important.
All right. Thank you, man. I appreciate the good words as well.
All right. Cheers.
All right. Bye.